Ladies and gentlemen, how's it going? Happy Friday. It is Friday, September 23rd. I'm wearing my women's glasses tonight. Hope you don't mind. Welcome to Student Law Justice. We are the oldest, largest, and in many ways only true, and the first, only true grassroots group fighting only and absolutely for student loan justice. We've been around since March 2005. We've been on 60 Minutes in the New York Times, in the Guardian. Most recently, we've been on Fox News. We've done a lot of things, guys. We're fighting only and absolutely. We are borrowers. We are fighting only and absolutely for borrowers. And we've seen a lot of things. We've done a lot of things. So welcome. If you're new to the group, welcome. We're glad that you're here. Please spread the word about this group. And I don't know what we look like right now, but if you can't tell, we have a special guest with us tonight, Miss Lisa Ansel from Los Angeles, California. Hey, Lisa.
Hello.
So let's just get right into it. You know, Lisa came into our group about a year ago, and I might add, Lisa is responsible for these awesome distressed truckers hats. See the little rips and tears in them? That's actually that's like a style thing. And Lisa was kind enough to organize that whole thing for us. And we rarely sell swag and do stuff like that, but you can get a hat right there, bit.ly/SLJ hats. Please do that. It's kind of a fundraising thing as well, so it helps quite a lot. And thank you again, Lisa, for doing that. I think the shirts are not on right now, so it's only the hats, and they are collector's items. So please do. So Lisa came to us, a year and a half ago, and she was having major problems, as were 99% of everybody who was trying for the public service loan forgiveness program. For those of you who don't know, public service was implemented in 2007. The idea was that if you work for a nonprofit and you make 120 on-time payments, which is 10 years, then your loans would be canceled. Sounds great, right? You know, the public service loan forgiveness and the IBR, which was income-based repayment, that was rolled out about around the same time as public service. They took a lot of the wind out of our sails as we were fighting very moderately for the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans. They're like, oh, we don't need bankruptcy. Look at these great repayment programs. They're so awesome. Well, I think 2016, 17 were when the first public service loan forgiveness loans were supposed to be forgiven. And I don't like that word. I don't think Lisa does either. I like cancellation, but whatever. It is what it is. So there's 99% rejection rate for people applying for this public service loan forgiveness. And lo and behold, that was 2017. Here we are 5 years later. Only recently did we get a more a revised a waiver, as it were, for public service, where they expanded. A lot of modifications were made where supposedly a ton of more people were finally supposed to start getting their loans canceled. And so, Lisa, why don't you just take it from there and talk us through it?
Sure. Thank you so much, Alan, for having me here today. And I want to, first of all, thank all of you who are listening to us today for being part of my journey in this process and in my healing. So I'm very grateful to be able to share my story and to continue to offer my support to student loan justice. Right. So I've been in education since 2005. And so I originally applied for public service loan forgiveness in 2017, thinking that I would definitely be eligible for full cancellation. My loan, my debt burden was around $50,000, graduate school debt. So anyways, 2017 rolls around, I apply, and then lo and behold, rejection. Right? I was in the wrong type of repayment plan, which is by no means unique to me. This was one of the major sort of failing features of public service loan forgiveness, was that you had to fit such a narrow category of the type of loan you had and type of repayment plan that you had that literally made it impossible for anybody to actually achieve cancellation. So I was rejected in 2017, and I appealed the rejection, and I was rejected again. And every year I would reapply, and every year, like clockwork, like my, holiday present, came the new rejection letter.
Yeah.
So, I had, like so many others, I had come to accept this as just my fate, that I wasn't going to make it through. I didn't leave the public sector because I happen to love working in education, and I still was going to continue in this career path despite the broken promise of PSLF. So when the limited waiver opened up, I reapplied yet again, expecting another rejection.
Opened up.
And one day, out of the blue, it's actually almost a year ago, I log on, like it was almost an automatic internal mechanism to me that I would log on to my Fed loan account as soon as I woke up in the morning. It's almost an obsessive compulsive trait. But I logged on literally the one morning, and then all of a sudden my loan balance was zero. Without any warning, without any congratulations, without any tracking of my payments. I just woke up one morning and it was zero. I remember telling Alan about this. I remember crying in a video that I made, and I'm not one to cry easily, but I was crying not necessarily out of happiness, but out of almost a visceral sense of emancipation from chains that I should have never been in. And so that's when I would say my engagement in student loan justice and sort of broader, within the, the battle to, achieve justice and to achieve, consumer protections, the return of consumer protections, bankruptcy, my involvement in our cause was all that much more amplified after my loans have been forgiven.
Well, I let me just interrupt. I remember when you finally got your loans canceled, and I was like, well, please don't disappear. Please don't pull the ladder up behind you. Like, I think so many people are sort of inclined to do, their loans go away and they're like, okay, problem solved. I'm moving down the road now. And they forget about student loan justice. So I just want to say thank you. I'm so impressed that you have redoubled, if not tripled, your efforts to fight for student loan justice that I've seen over the past year. And so let that be a lesson to everybody out there. If you make it through public service, don't pull the ladder up. Be like Lisa. Sorry, go ahead.
No, thank you, Alan. And I'm in this to the very end. And I try to, anyone who comes to me for guidance and mentorship in this process, I welcome them with open arms, because this is part of my own healing. This is part of the years that have been ripped away from me. I don't own a home, and it's at my age, which I don't want to admit. It's something I've lost many years of wealth building, and it is because of the tremendous collateral damage that having this unjust debt has caused to me. But yeah, I think it would be really important, Alan, maybe if we could start to talk about the limited waiver and the features and the shortcomings of the limited waiver.
You're exactly. In fact, I was going to ask you, public service rejection rate for those applications was over 99% for the first, 3-4 years. How has that changed? Are most people now actually getting public service, or what do the numbers look like?
Right. So apart from myself, I know one other person one other educator who has received loan cancellation through PSLF. And I work in academia. So, and I know one other person, and the person I know does not work in my university. But anyways, the rejection rate, even with the limited waiver, we see a rejection rate of 91%. So this is yes, the Department of Education can say truthfully that more people are actually receiving loan cancellation, but we're seeing an increased rate of 8 to 9%. And so if you look at 9% out of 100, I think in any, rational metric, that is a failing rate.
That's not worth bragging about.
That is really not,
a 90% disqualification rate is now the Department of Education certainly are trotting out these rare wins, and sort of, I like to say, they're sort of throwing nickels around like they're manhole covers. They're highlighting and overemphasizing the very few people who make it through, while even still 90% of everybody is getting kicked out.
And that's with the waiver.
Well, and that's with the waiver. And I also want to mention, there's so many people who tried for public service, and then for one reason or another over the years, maybe their employment certification form didn't go through, maybe their income verification, etc. So there's a lot of people, for all those even for the 90% of people who currently are getting rejected, there's even many times more still who fell out of the program years and years ago and just gave up even trying in the first place. So the number
and not to even mention, Alan, now that we're experiencing the transfer between Fed loan to Mohila, we're seeing again the same par for the course loss of paperwork, loss of employer verification forms, loss of previous payments. These are the level of incompetence that we have experienced firsthand. And this incompetence has real consequences on people's lives. And so when you have the right hand not knowing what the left is doing, what I always tell people when they talk to me about PSLF, they say, I called today, I was on hold for 2 hours, the same thing. Such and such person told me that this payment wasn't eligible, or this, my employer did not count as a nonprofit, whatever. My first piece of advice is hang up and call back, because I guarantee you that you'll never get the same answer twice.
We talk about bureaucratic and administrative bungling on this group all the time. It is the Department of Education and its contractors, the level of their incompetence, the level of their baffling and bamboozling borrowers. It's the stuff of legend. It's like we've never seen anything on this level. And isn't it interesting that almost every time they lose paperwork or lose a record, or they don't have the benefit of that monetarily, always accrues to them, not to us? Isn't that interesting? So anyways, it's a little segue. So what do you think, Lisa? I mean, what do you see as the path forward for public service?
Okay. Well, there have been some proposals in Congress to strengthen the PSLF program by codifying the terms, that were put forth in the limited waiver. And I believe there is, I would want to highlight the bill put forward by Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, the Strengthen and Secure PSLF Act. I can look up the exact title of it. I know that he introduced that bill last May. There hasn't been any movement on it, but when the bill was first introduced, it was a powerful recognition that the terms of the limited waiver.
I just brought that up so people can see it.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay, S4345, simplifying and strengthening the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Act. There's certain facets of this bill that would be very beneficial. I would say first and foremost, the shortening of PSLF, 120 payments, 10 years. is an onerous amount of time for a public servant, because we're already talking about a categorically underpaid body of citizens, right?
I might chirp in there too. Remember, for years and years, and even today, the standard repayment plan for a federal student loan is 10 years.
Right.
And so it's kind of a wash in that regard, but sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and also this bill, seeks to codify the provisions of the limited waiver, such as allowing various types of loan payment plans to be counted, allowing various types of, the loans do have to be consolidated to direct loans, but various types of previous payment plans and also previous periods of forbearance, which is a game changer for many, many public servants.
Yeah, one thing I had meant to bring up, maybe even a little earlier than now, but this thing with Joe Biden's student loan cancellation, that had a lot of sort of ramifications, not in what it did for the public service loan forgiveness program, but and for the waiver, but what it left out.
Absolutely.
So the cancellation proposal made it, well, first of all, it made it a point that he was not doing this because the Higher Education Act, but that's a different story. But what they didn't mention was that they did not extend this waiver. In fact, the waiver is set to expire October 31st, which is a little over a month away. And they made no mention at all in this loan cancellation announcement about extending this waiver. So people's backs are up against the wall, yeah? And this Sheldon White House legislation has not a snowball's chance in hell of passing this year, this congressional session. And so people's backs are going to be up against the wall. One other thing I wanted to point out about this waiver is it requires people to consolidate into the direct loan program if they have these older style FFELP loans. And that is kind of a risk fraught proposition in and of itself for many people. So there are still a lot of problems with it.
Right. And just to actually highlight some of the main problems that, it's less in what was said and more in what was omitted, from Biden's cancellation plan. Because when we think about it, again, this is a bit of a gray area. So I can't speak with definitive knowledge on the yes or no side. But it takes between 30 to 60 days for a loan to be consolidated into a direct loan. And so an area of ambiguity at this point is whether people who are consolidating their loans before the October 31st deadline will be, in fact, grandfathered in to the limited waiver, knowing that their loans may not be consolidated until after the waiver has expired. So that's an area of ambiguity that Secretary Cardona should really address publicly.
Well, before we get into the questions, if I could just add one quick point to that is, history has shown, ladies and gentlemen, that if there's any way that the Department of Education and its unelected bureaucrats and so forth and its contractors, if there's any way that they cannot cancel loans, that's what they will do. So they exploit ambiguity. They exploit vagary. Any opportunity they can use to say, oh, nope, you're not getting it. That is what they will do. There's literally millions of people who have tried for all manner of loan cancellation since 1995 through the ICR, through the IBR, public service, pay as you earn, revised pay. The cumulative disqualification rate for all of those cancellation programs is like 8 or 9%. So it's come down a little bit because of public service, but this is the way the game is played in Washington, D.C., ladies and gentlemen. And so I hope that you all will think about things. And maybe the overarching point that I would make, which I make every night, all the time, for almost everything, is that as long as the threat of constitutional bankruptcy rights remain gone from this lending system, there's no good reason to trust any of these income-driven repayment programs. Even this waiver, even if the waiver was extended, it would not be very extremely trustworthy. So on that note, there's a bill right now, S2598, in the Senate. The bill will have a companion bill. And this is sort of breaking news as of today, ladies and gentlemen. The House will be debating the companion bill on September 29th, and that is the big news that I was unable to tell you, but now it's matter of public record. So mark your calendars, ladies and gentlemen. September 29th is going to be a big day for us. So Lisa, we've got a lot of questions. Let me just get in here and see how many we can get through. Derek Williams in North Carolina, home of Virginia Fox, who maybe we'll talk about, says hello. Yeah. Leslie Fishman says hello. Derek, thanks you for staying around and helping the rest of us. Leslie Fishman just comments that these student loans are toxic to people's psyche, physical and spiritual well-being. Many are suffering. The new public service provider is Mohila. It's a mess.
Yes, it is. I can just, very brief. I have not called Mohila personally because I have tremendous PTSD around calling, FedLoan in of itself. But what I have heard about people's interactions with Mohila is more par for the course: loss of paperwork, loss of payment counts, tremendous hold times, 2-3 hours. Again, the right hand doesn't know what the left is doing, losing applications, losing loan consolidation forms. So we're seeing, again, the same level of incompetence and chaos. But I wanted to mention one thing, and that is I've actually come out pretty strongly on Twitter to Secretary Cardona about this. And that is the following. Taking a step back, what are we doing as a nation? If we let the public service loan forgiveness limited waiver simply lapse and expire, and then literally within a week, we're going to see the rejection rates climb up to 99% again. How are we going to ever recruit people into public service positions? What is this going to do to our existing horrific teacher shortage that we're already experiencing? Our nurses shortage. There are so many areas in which shutting down I can't even call this a success, but I would say a step forward in PSLF. There are so many areas where we will see tremendous damage to our society by simply letting this lapse and letting the 99% rejection rate once again become the status quo. So I would really urge Secretary Cardona to really think this through, not just for the short term, but for the long term, in terms of what type of public servants do we want to be recruiting the best and the brightest? If so, who's going to willingly sign up, knowing that they're going to be entering a lower paying profession to begin with, and plus no chance of having their loans forgiven? So it really doesn't inspire much confidence for future generations of public servants.
Yeah. And, here on this group, we've essentially given up all hope over the past 17 and a half years on any of the income-driven repayment programs, just because the corporate culture at the Department of Education has become so toxic. Speaking of toxic, Leslie Fishman, so we'll see what happens. I know for the benefit of our audience out there, even before this pandemic, 85% of all borrowers, including those working for nonprofits, they were underwater on their loans. And I think probably nearly 100% of everybody trying for public service was underwater on their loans. Like the default rate for 2004 students is 40%. That's twice higher than the default rate for subprime home mortgages. And the class of 2004 was borrowing only, not even, in fact, a third of what is being borrowed today. So the failure of this lending program writ large is maybe the bigger story here. And I would hope people that would keep that in context. So, hey, we've got a few more other comments here. Doug Grossman mentions Here, thank you, Lisa. Please mention the Dr. Phil show that featured student loan debt today. It aired today on NBC at 4 p.m. Eastern. A must watch. Doug makes another comment here. I guess I'll just mention them both now since Doug Grossman says, I reapplied after my loans transferred to Mohila. Mohila, by the way, is the Missouri guarantor. And the guarantors historically have been absolutely evil.
And third party subsidiary of Navient.
That's right. A close partner in crime with Navient.
You cannot omit that fact too.
Yeah. So Doug mentions that he reapplied after his loans transferred to Mohila, and they only gave him 44 payments. And I've been making payments since 1995. So they're keeping Doug on the hook. And that seems to be more the rule than the exception with public service, including the waiver.
Doug, send me a direct message later. We'll talk about it.
Yeah. And let me go back to the Dr. Phil thing. We've had I've seen quite a bit of interest on the group here today for this Dr. Phil thing. I am always dubious. Like, I don't like our group to be used as a mouthpiece for whatever the name brand celebrity decides to talk about student loans on any given day. So I know a lot of people posted the thing and we didn't do the post on our group. And let me just say, if we will repost stuff on our group, if it is newsworthy and if it's directly related to our mission of fighting for student loan justice, which means returning bankruptcy, which means fighting for cancellation and all the cancellation programs like public service. So sorry about that, guys. If it turns out that this Dr. Phil thing was relevant and newsworthy and, even if they even discussed bankruptcy, I would consider that to be pretty newsworthy. But I see Dr. Phil and I see Dave Ramsey, kind of a guy, and Dr. Phil. So I'm dubious. I'm very wary, particularly of a guy like Dr. Phil, who he's as likely to start wagging his finger at the borrowers as he is to actually take our side. So we'll see how that went. I haven't seen it. If I can find it later after this.
I will watch it later and provide some commentary. Yeah,
I'll give it a look, but we don't like making a big deal about that kind of stuff unless it turns out that it's actually significant newsworthy. So, hey, Vanjie Unruh's with us. Doug Grossman also mentions that he will be 60 in March. And maybe I'll just throw out the fact that older people now outnumber younger people with student loans, ladies and gentlemen. People over the age of 35 outnumber people under the age of 35. People over the age of 50 outnumber people under the age of 25 with student loans. And on average, they owe 300% more, not less, more. And this is despite having borrowed far, far less than the younger crowd many years ago. I'm in the over 50 club now, so maybe I'm being a little biased there, but good point. So Vanjie says it's only 4:30. He's talking about the Dr. Phil broadcast. Vanjie mentions nowhere else is a 95 to 99% rejection rate not a failure. I agree. If you score 10% on an exam, that's below an F. That's like the worst fail you can possibly get. And yet here we are, Department of Education, trotting out these 10% of people who are making it through as huge success stories. Hey, Kara Rodriguez is with us tonight. She says, preach. No one will go into teaching again, Kara mentions as
that's going to be the direct consequence.
Aaron Root's with us tonight. Hey, Aaron. Matthew Kearns, actually, Joanna Kearns from Florida is with us tonight. She says, correct and well said, Lisa Ansel. Terry Dodd. Hey, Terry. Terry says, I can actually see Dr. Phil wagging his finger at us. LOL. Yeah. So can I. I see Dr. Phil and I think Dave Ramsey. And I think like Joe or what's his name? Mike, whatever the dirty jobs guy, Mike Rowe, ROWE. That could be the way that went. So we'll see. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, but it looks like we're kind of running out of time here. Lisa, was there anything you wanted to leave us with or any final thoughts, comments, questions, etc.?
Well, I just want to reemphasize, this is the crunch time. This is the time where we really need all hands on deck, calling our senators, doing our daily actions, no matter where we are. We're all busy people. I have 3 jobs. No
Daily
matter
actions, guys. Daily actions, right there. You can see it
right.
right
We
there.
all have to be doing this because we're all in this together. I am, just because my own personal debt burden may not be part of my daily life anymore, doesn't mean I'm any less invested in what is necessary to pull this over the finish line. We're all holding hands in this together, and we're going to only cross this finish line together if we do everything within our power to make sure our voices are heard to our senators, to make sure that the daily actions are completed, and that all of the information, all of our the politicians who we need to target in this battle, we do so in unity and we do so with alacrity. So thank you all for continuing to, help us as a collective to do what we can to push this through. And S2598, it all comes down to bankruptcy. Call your senators, please.
Well, fantastic. You gave me a word to look up after this broadcast. Alacrity. Lisa went to Harvard, so
and I had the debt to prove it.
Yes. So, well, thank you, Lisa. And just maybe to put a finishing touch on your comments. Anybody can pick up the phone. Anybody can call their senator. Anybody can do what Lisa and me and everybody I hear, Terry Dodd and Joanna and Doug and so many other people. Anybody can be helping us, and you're not better than us. And this is your problem. And guys, this congressional session ends at the end of this year. So if we don't get S2598 passed, we're kind of screwed. In fact, one of the biggest tricks that our opposition would love to play on us is to foist lame or even fake loan cancellation on us as a cheap substitute for the bankruptcy rights that should have never been taken away. So time is ticking, guys. And if ever you were going to get off your proverbial ass, pardon my French, and help us fight, I'd say for the next 2 weeks would be the white hot moment. We're in a window here, guys, and this window will not be here a couple, 3-4 weeks from now. So with that, Lisa, I just want to thank you. Thanks everybody who joined us. This is the time to fight, guys. So have a great weekend. I'll be back on Sunday. Check back daily because things are happening fast. And Lisa, thanks again. And if you appreciate all the work that Lisa's done, I hope that you will buy a hat. And maybe we'll do the shirts at some point again too, but we'll see how that goes. So Lisa, again, thank you very much. Good night, everyone. Have a great weekend. Godspeed doing our daily actions. And God bless everyone.
Have a good evening.